The first time I saw him, I thought it was a glitch. I'd been working airport security for 6 years, and you see a lot of weird things on the monitors. People sleeping in bathrooms, couples arguing, the occasional drunk trying to sneak into first class. But you get used to it. It becomes background noise. Just another night shift watching grainy footage of empty terminals. It was 3:12 a.m. when he appeared on camera 14, the one covering gate B9. 1 second, the frame was empty, just rows of chairs and that blue carpet they have in every airport. The next second, he was there, standing in the middle of the frame, perfectly still. I leaned forward, squinting at the screen. He was wearing a dark coat, hands at his sides, facing the camera, not moving, not even swaying, just standing. "Hey, Rob," I called to my coworker across the room. "You see this guy on 14? Rob barely looked up from his phone. "What guy?" "Gate B9, just standing there." Rob glanced at his monitor, then shrugged. "Probably missed his flight. Tell him to move along if he's still there in 10. I switched to camera 13, which covered the corridor leading to B9. Empty. I rewound the footage from camera 14, watching the timestamp tick backward. 3:11, 3:10, 3:09. The gate area stayed empty. Then at 3:12, he just appeared. No walking into frame, no movement at all. One frame empty, the next frame he was there. A chill ran down my spine, but I pushed it away. Probably just a camera hiccup. We had old equipment. Sometimes frames would skip or duplicate. I made a note to report it in the morning and went back to scanning the other monitors. At 3:34 a.m., he appeared again. This time on camera 22, the arrivals hall near baggage claim. Same man, same dark coat, same perfectly still posture. But now he was in a completely different part of the airport. I checked the timestamp. He'd appeared at exactly 3:34. No transition, no movement, just there. My mouth went dry. I quickly switched to the cameras between gate B9 and the arrivals hall. Nothing. He hadn't walked. He hadn't taken the train or the shuttle. He'd just appeared. "Rob," my voice came out tighter this time. "Rob, look at camera 22. "Dude, I'm trying to—" He stopped mid-sentence when he saw his screen. "Who the hell is that?" "Same guy from B9. He just showed up." "What do you mean, showed up?" "I mean, he wasn't there, and then he was. No walking, no nothing." Rob's face had gone pale in the blue light of the monitors. "That's not possible." "I know." We both stared at the screen. The man didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, facing the camera, like he was waiting for something. Or someone. "Should we call someone?" Rob asked. "And tell them what? That a guy is standing still? We could send patrol to check it out." I reached for the radio, but before I could key it, the man disappeared. 1 second he was there on camera 22. The next, the arrivals hall was empty again. "Did you see that?" My hand was shaking now. Rob nodded slowly. Neither of us said anything for a moment. Then Rob grabbed the mouse and started rewinding his footage. Maybe someone's messing with us, playing a prank or something. How would they— "Camera 8, Rob interrupted, his voice barely a whisper. I looked at my monitors. Camera 8 covered the security checkpoint, and there he was again, standing on the passenger side of the metal detectors. Same posture, same coat, same lifeless stare directly into the camera. He was closer now, closer to us. The control room was on the second floor, just past the security checkpoint. My heart started hammering in my chest. "When did he—" 3:56, Rob said, checking the timestamp. He appeared at 3:56. Every 22 minutes, he was appearing every 22 minutes, and each time he was getting closer to our location. I stood up from my chair. We need to go check the checkpoint right now. Are you insane? I'm not going out there. Rob, we have to. Camera 31 flickered, the one covering the elevator bay. The man was there now, standing directly in front of the elevator doors. Closer, much closer. The elevators were right down the hall from our control room. "Oh, God," Rob whispered. "Oh, God, he's coming here." I grabbed the radio with trembling hands. "This is security control to any patrol units. We have an unidentified individual near the second-floor elevators. Possible intrusion. Can someone respond?" Static crackled. Then a voice. "Control, this is Patrol 3. We're on the second floor now. What's the individual's description?" I described the man, the dark coat, the stillness, everything. "Copy that. We're approaching the elevators now." Rob and I watched camera 31. The two patrol officers appeared in frame, walking towards the spot where the man had been standing. But the frame was empty now. The man had gone. "Control, there's nobody here," came the voice over the radio. "Check the stairwells," I said, my voice cracking. "Check everywhere." We watched them search. They checked the elevators, the stairwells, the bathrooms. Nothing. The man had vanished. Rob was breathing hard beside me. Maybe he's gone. Maybe whatever that was, it's over. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But I kept thinking about the pattern. Every 22 minutes, getting closer each time. I checked my watch. 4:18 a.m. If the pattern held, at 4:18 exactly, camera 2 flickered to life. Camera 2 was inside the control room. It faced our desks, a security measure so that everything we did was recorded. I never paid attention to it, never had a reason to. Until now. On the monitor showing camera 2's feed, I could see our desks, our chairs, the blue glow of all the screens, and standing directly behind my chair, perfectly still, was the man in the dark coat. I leaned around so fast I knocked my coffee over. The room was empty, just Rob and me and the hum of the equipment. "He's not here," I said, my voice shaking. "He's not actually here." But when I looked back at the monitor, he was still there on camera 2's feed, standing right behind where I was sitting, close enough to touch. Rob had gone completely white. "Turn off the monitor. Just turn it off." "That's not going to—" The lights in the control room flickered. We both froze. The monitors dimmed for just a second, and in that moment of semi-darkness, I swear I felt breath on the back of my neck, cold breath, and the faint smell of something burnt. When the lights came back to full brightness, camera 2's feed had changed. The man wasn't behind my chair anymore. He was standing directly in front of camera 2, inches from the lens. His face filled the entire screen, pale skin, dark hollows where his eyes should be, and an expression that was almost sad, almost pleading. Then, every single monitor in the control room switched to the same image, all 40 screens showing the same thing, his face staring out at us from every angle. And then, in perfect unison, every single camera in the airport went dark. We sat in complete silence, just the emergency lights glowing red in the corners. Rob was gripping his desk so hard his knuckles had gone white. "We need to leave," Rob whispered. "Right now." I didn't argue. We grabbed our things and ran for the door. I don't remember much about the rest of that night, just running through empty hallways, our footsteps echoing, always feeling like someone was right behind us. We quit the next day, both of us. No 2 weeks' notice, No explanation. I haven't been back to that airport since. But sometimes, late at night, I still wonder, who was he? What did he want? And why did he keep getting closer? I don't have answers. All I have is the last image burned into my memory. His face on every screen, those hollow eyes staring straight through me. And the terrible certainty that if we'd stayed one more cycle, one more 22 minutes, we would have found out what happens when he finally arrives. I'd been cleaning airport bathrooms for 2 years, and I thought I'd seen it all. Clogged toilets, trash everywhere, people passed out in stalls. None of it fazed me anymore. It was just part of the job. But what happened in Terminal D that night changed everything. It was a little past 1 a.m. when I rolled my cart up to the women's restroom near Gate D12. The terminal was nearly empty, just a few red-eye passengers scattered around waiting for early morning flights. I'd already cleaned the men's room across the hall, and this was my last stop before break. I pushed the door open and immediately stopped. The lights were on, bright fluorescents humming overhead, but that wasn't unusual. What made me pause was the sound. Water running. Not just a drip, but a full stream, like someone had left a faucet on full blast. "Hello," I called out, propping the door open with my cart. "Maintenance! Anyone in here?" No answer, just the steady rush of water. I walked inside, my shoes squeaking on the tile. The bathroom was standard airport issue, 6 stalls on the left, 4 sinks on the right, big mirror running the length of the wall. And there, at the far sink, water was pouring out at full force, splashing against the porcelain basin. I walked over and turned it off, muttering under my breath. People were so careless. I dried my hands and turned to start my usual routine, but something caught my eye. The last stall, the big handicap one at the end. The door was closed, and I could see the red occupied indicator on the lock. "Hey," I called out. "I need to clean in here. You almost done?" Silence. I waited, counting to 10 in my head. Sometimes people just didn't hear you. Sometimes they were on their phones. But after 30 seconds of nothing, I knocked on the stall door. "Ma'am, you okay in there?" Still nothing. I bent down to check underneath. No feet, no shadow, nothing. My stomach tightened. I knocked again, harder this time. "I can see the stall's locked, but nobody's answering. I'm going to have to—" I tried the door, locked solid. I got down on my hands and knees and looked under again, really looked this time. The stall was completely empty. No purse, no bag, nothing. Just an empty toilet and locked door. "What the hell?" I whispered. I stood up and examined the lock. These were standard airport stall locks, the simple, sliding kind you could unlock from the outside with a quarter if you needed to. I pulled a quarter from my pocket and was about to slide it into the gap when the lights went out. Complete darkness. The kind of dark that only happens when every single light cuts out at once. "Hello?" The emergency lights should have kicked on. They always kicked on. But I was standing in total blackness, and the only sound was my own breathing and the sudden drip, drip, drip of that sink I'd just turned off. Then I heard it. A soft scraping sound, metal on metal, coming from inside the locked stall. "Who's in there?" My voice came out shaky. The scraping stopped. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, slowly, deliberately, I heard the lock slide open. The stall door creaked as it swung outwards, and even though I couldn't see anything in the darkness, I felt it. A cold draft of air, like someone had just walked past me. The temperature in the bathroom dropped so fast I could see my breath in the dim glow of the exit sign above the door. I didn't wait. I turned and ran, my shoes slipping on the tile. I hit my cart on the way out, sending supplies clattering across the floor, but I didn't stop. I ran straight to the security office, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. "There's something wrong with the bathroom at D12, I gasped to Martin, the night guard on duty. The stall was locked, but nobody was inside, and the lights went out, and— "Slow down, Rita," Martin said, standing up from his desk. "What bathroom?" "D12, women's. Something's not right." Martin grabbed his flashlight and radio. "All right, let's go check it out." We walked back together, and with each step, I felt stupider. The lights in the terminal were all working fine. Everything looked normal. By the time we reached the bathroom, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Martin pushed the door open. The lights inside were working perfectly fine, bright and humming like always. My cleaning cart was still there, supplies scattered where I'd knocked them over, but the bathroom itself looked completely normal. "See anything weird?" Martin asked, shining his flashlight around. I walked to the last stall. The door was hanging open now, empty, normal. "It was locked," I said weakly, "from the inside, and the lights went out." Martin checked the light switches, flipping them on and off. They worked fine. He examined the stall lock. "These things stick sometimes. Maybe it just seemed locked." "No, it was definitely—" "And the lights probably just flickered. Old building, old wiring, happens all the time." I wanted to argue, but what could I say? That I'd felt something walk past me in the dark? That the temperature had dropped 20 degrees in 2 seconds? He'd think I was losing it. "Yeah," I said finally. "Maybe you're right." Martin patted my shoulder. "Take your break. Get some coffee. You've been working too hard." After he left, I stood there alone, staring at that last stall. Everything looked normal, but as I turned to gather my supplies, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The mirror. It was fogged up, not completely, just a section of it, like someone had breathed on it or taken a hot shower. And there, in the fog, was a handprint. A perfect handprint, fingers spread wide, pressed against the glass from the inside. I didn't touch it, didn't go near it, just grabbed what I could carry and left the rest. The next night, I asked my supervisor if I could switch routes. She asked why, and I made up some excuse about wanting a change. She seemed annoyed, but eventually agreed. A week later, I ran into Eddie, one of the senior maintenance guys in the break room. "Hey, I heard you got moved off Terminal D." "Yeah, just wanted something different." He gave me a look. "It was the bathroom, wasn't it? D12? I froze. "What do you mean?" Eddie sat down across from me, his voice low. "That restroom's been trouble for years. They tried to seal it off back in 2003, but the airport made them reopen it. Not enough facilities in that terminal." "Seal it off? Why?" "Woman died in there. Older lady, had a heart attack in one of the stalls. They didn't find her for almost 8 hours. By the time someone checked, he trailed off, shaking his head. After that, people started reporting weird stuff. Locked stalls with nobody inside, lights going out, water turning on by itself." My hands had started shaking. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because most people think it's bullshit. Just old building problems, weird coincidences. But everyone who's worked here long enough knows. He looked at me seriously. "You saw something, didn't you?" I told him everything. The locked stall, the darkness, the cold, the handprint. When he finished, Eddie nodded slowly. "Last stall?" "Yeah." "That's where they found her. Sitting there, door locked from the inside. They had to break it open." He stood up, dumping his coffee in the sink. "Best advice I can give you? Stay away from that bathroom. Some people, they clean it and nothing happens, but every once in a while, someone sees something, and those people, they don't last long on Terminal D." I never went back to that bathroom, never even walked past it if I could help it. But about a month later,
I heard that another cleaner had quit suddenly. Young guy, third shift, refused to say why, just turned in his badge and left. I ran into him a few weeks later at a grocery store. When I asked what happened, his face went pale. "I was cleaning D12, he said quietly. "The last stall was locked, nobody inside. I used a coin to pop it open, and—" He stopped, his hands gripping the shopping cart. There was water all over the floor, footprints, wet footprints, leading from the stall to the mirror. "Did you see?" "I saw her," he whispered. "In the mirror, just for a second, an old woman, soaking wet, staring at me. And then she was gone." He walked away without saying goodbye. I quit 2 months later, told myself it was for better pay, better hours. But the truth is, I couldn't walk through that airport anymore without thinking about that bathroom, that locked stall, that handprint on the mirror. Sometimes I wonder if she's still there, in that last stall in D12, still locked in, still trying to get someone's attention, still waiting for someone to find her. And I wonder how many people walk into that bathroom every day, completely unaware that they're not alone.
I was 2 hours into my shift when I heard the first announcement. "Attention passengers, Flight 447 to Denver is now boarding at Gate C7. All passengers holding tickets for Flight 447, please proceed to Gate C7 for immediate boarding." I paused, my mop dripping onto the polished floor of Terminal C. It was 2:47 a.m. The last flight had left at midnight. The terminal was dead silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, half of them dimmed for the night. There shouldn't be any announcements. There shouldn't be anyone here but me. I glanced around the empty corridor. The shops were dark, their metal gates pulled down and locked. The rows of seats sat vacant, that eerie kind of empty that only airports have in the dead of night. I shook my head and went back to mopping. Probably just a glitch in the system. It happens sometimes, or so I'd been told during my training 3 weeks ago. Old equipment, outdated software, nothing to worry about. 20 minutes later, it happened again. "Attention passengers, Flight 447 to Denver is now boarding at Gate C7. All passengers holding tickets for Flight 447, please proceed to Gate C7 for immediate boarding." The same announcement, word for word, same calm, professional voice. I stopped mopping again, this time leaving the mop in the bucket. The voice echoed through the empty terminal, bouncing off the high ceilings and glass walls. When it finished, the silence that followed felt heavier somehow, thicker. I pulled out my phone and called Marcus, the night supervisor. "Yeah?" His voice was groggy. He'd probably been napping in the break room. "Hey, Marcus? I keep hearing boarding announcements for Flight 447. Is that supposed to be happening?" There was a pause on the other end. "Flight what?" 447, to Denver. It keeps saying it's boarding at C7. Another pause, longer this time. "There's no Flight 447 on the schedule tonight. Check the board." I walked over to the departure screen mounted on the wall. It displayed the last few flights of the night, all marked as departed. Nothing about Denver. Nothing about Flight 447. "Yeah, there's nothing on the board," I said. "Probably just a system malfunction. I'll put in a maintenance request in the morning. Just ignore it." "All right." I hung up, but something about his tone bothered me. He'd sounded almost nervous. I tried to get back to work, but my focus was shot. I kept glancing down the long corridor toward the C gates. Most of them were dark. Gate C7 was down there somewhere. I'd never actually been to that end of the terminal. My route usually kept me in the main areas. 20 minutes later, right on schedule, the announcement played again. "Attention passengers, Flight 447 to Denver is now boarding at Gate C7. All passengers holding tickets for Flight 447, please proceed to Gate C7 for immediate boarding." That was it. I had to see for myself. I left my cart near Gate C3 and started walking. The farther I went, the dimmer the lights became. Some of them were completely off. My footsteps echoed in the silence, and I became acutely aware of how alone I was. The terminal stretched out before me like a tunnel, gates passing by on either side. C4, C5, C6. Then I reached the end. Gate C7 wasn't just closed, it was sealed. A heavy metal barrier had been installed where the jet bridge should have been, bolted into the floor and walls. Yellow caution tape crisscrossed the entrance, faded and dusty like it had been there for years. The chairs in the waiting area were gone. Even the gate number sign looked old, the plastic yellowed with age. I stood there, staring at it. This gate hadn't been used in a long time, maybe years. So why was the announcement calling passengers to it? My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Don't go to C7. My stomach dropped. I typed back quickly. "Too late. I'm here. What's going on?" The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, his response came through. "Just get back to your route, now." I should have listened. I should have turned around right then. But something made me stay. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the way the air felt colder down here, or the way the silence seemed to press against my ears. I walked closer to the sealed gate, close enough to see the thick layer of dust on the metal barrier. That's when I noticed the photos. They were small, tucked into the corner where the gate met the wall. Polaroids, faded and curled at the edges. I knelt down and pulled one free. It showed a group of people standing near a plane, smiling. They were dressed in styles of the 90s, high-waisted jeans, oversized jackets. Behind them, I could just barely make out the gate number on the wall, C7. I grabbed another photo. Same gate, different people, all of them smiling. "Attention passengers, Flight 447 to Denver is now boarding at gate C7. All passengers holding tickets for Flight 447, please proceed to gate C7 for immediate boarding." The announcement blared directly above me, so loud I flinched. My heart hammered in my chest. I stuffed the photos in my pocket and backed away from the gate, my hands shaking. I practically ran back to the main terminal. When I reached my cart, I pulled out my phone and Googled Flight 447 Denver. My fingers were clumsy on the screen, but eventually I found something. An old news article from 1996. Fatal runway fire at regional airport claims 23 lives. I scrolled through the article, my breath catching in my throat. A plane bound for Denver had caught fire during boarding at gate C7, an electrical malfunction. 23 passengers dead. The gate was permanently closed after the incident, sealed off as part of the airport's renovations in the early 2000s. The article included a photo of the wreckage, and there, in the background, I could see them, some of the same faces from the Polaroids I'd just found. My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, did you leave?" "Me. What happened at C7? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because people who go down there hear things, see things. Just finish your shift and don't go back." I wanted to argue, to demand answers, but the announcement started again. "Flight 447 to Denver is now boarding at gate C7. All passengers holding tickets for Flight 447, please proceed to gate C7 for immediate boarding." Only this time, it didn't stop. It kept repeating, over and over, the same calm, professional voice, but now it felt wrong, insistent, desperate. I grabbed my cart and moved toward the exit, but as I passed the mouth of C Terminal corridor, I made the mistake of looking back. There were people standing at the far end. Shadows, really. I couldn't make out their faces, but I could see their silhouettes against the dim light. They were just standing there, watching. And then, one by one, they started walking towards C7. I didn't stick around to see if they made it. I left my cart, clocked out early, and drove home in silence, the announcement still echoing in my head. I never went back to that job. And I still have those Polaroids in my pocket. I don't know why I kept them. Maybe as proof. Maybe as a reminder. But sometimes late at night,
I swear I can still hear it. Flight 447 to Denver is now boarding at Gate C7.
The phone started ringing at 12:47 a.m. I was in the back office filing incident reports when I heard it, that old-fashioned ring echoing from down the hall, sharp and insistent. I looked up from my desk, confused. Lost and Found closed at 8 p.m. The phone system should have rolled over to voicemail hours ago. But it kept ringing. I got up and walked down the narrow hallway toward the Lost and Found office. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow airports have at night. The ringing got louder as I approached. Through the small window in the door, I could see the phone on the desk, its red light blinking with each ring. I hesitated. Something about it felt off. Why would someone call now? Why wasn't it going to voicemail? On the 7th ring, I unlocked the door and picked up. Airport Lost and Found, this is... I need to claim my suitcase. The voice was male, older, with a strange echo to it, like he was calling from somewhere far away. Sir, we're closed. You'll need to call back tomorrow between 9 and... I need to claim it tonight. I've been waiting so long. I pinched the bridge of my nose. It had been a long shift, and I wasn't in the mood for this. I understand, but there's nobody here to process claims right now. If you give me your name and a callback number... The suitcase. Brown leather. Gold initials on the handle. TMH. I froze. My eyes drifted to the storage area behind the desk. Rows of metal shelves stacked with unclaimed luggage, boxes of phones, jackets, stuffed animals. And there, on the bottom shelf in the back corner, was a brown leather suitcase. I'd noticed it before. It had been there since my first day 3 months ago, covered in dust. The gold initials on the handle had caught my eye. TMH. How did you... I started, then caught myself. Sir, do you have your claim ticket? I need my suitcase. Please. I've been trying to get it back for so long. I pinched the bridge of my nose. It had been a long shift, and I wasn't in the mood for this. I understand, but there's nobody here to process claims right now. If you give me your name and a callback number... The suitcase. Brown leather. Gold initials on the handle. TMH. The line went dead. I stood there holding the phone, listening to the dial tone. Then, slowly, I hung up and turned to look at the brown suitcase on the shelf. It sat there, innocent and dusty, like it had been waiting all this time. I should have left it alone, should have locked up and gone back to my reports, but instead I pulled on a pair of latex gloves from the desk drawer and walked over to the shelf. The locks were old but not secured. I popped them open and lifted the lid. The smell hit me first, musty, old, like opening a time capsule. Inside was clothing, a wool coat, a pair of men's dress shoes, some shirts neatly folded, all styles from decades ago. Underneath the clothes, I found a leather date book from 1987, the pages yellowed and brittle. Thomas M. Harwell was written inside the cover in neat handwriting. I flipped through it, appointments, notes, phone numbers, and on March 14th, 1987, he'd written, Flight 239 to Chicago, 6:45 p.m. Beneath the date book was a newspaper, folded carefully. I pulled it out and felt my blood turn to ice. The headline read, Flight 239 crash kills all 89 aboard. The date on the paper was March 15th, 1987. I dropped the newspaper like it had burned me. My heart was pounding, my breath coming in short gasps. I scanned the article. Flight 239 had gone down shortly after takeoff. Mechanical failure. No survivors. Among the deceased, Thomas M. Harwell, 52, traveling to Chicago for business. The phone rang again. I jumped, knocking the suitcase off the desk. It hit the floor with a heavy thud, spilling its contents across the tile. The phone kept ringing. I stared at it, my whole body trembling. On the 4th ring, I picked up. Lost and Found? Whispered I. Did you find it?
The same voice, Thomas Harwell. "Mr. Harwell, the crash. You were on flight 239. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "I know. But that means you're—" "I just want my suitcase. I never made it to Chicago. I never got to finish what I needed to do. My wife was waiting for me. My kids. I just want to go home." Tears were streaming down my face now. I don't know why. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the desperate sadness in his voice. I can't release items without proper identification," and the line went dead. I stood there holding the phone, listening to the dial tone. Then, slowly, I hung up and turned to look at the brown suitcase on the shelf. It sat there, innocent and dusty, like it had been waiting all this time. I should have left it alone, should have locked up and gone back to my reports. But instead, I gathered everything and carefully packed it back inside. I locked the suitcase and placed it back on the shelf, but this time I put it somewhere visible, somewhere it wouldn't be forgotten. The next morning, I went to the archives and pulled the old logbooks from Lost and Found. I had to see for myself. And there it was, page after page, going back to 1987, the same phone number, the same time, 12:47 a.m., the same note written over and over in different handwriting from different employees over the decades. Caller asking about brown suitcase. No answer when callback attempted. Number disconnected. He'd been calling for almost 40 years, and nobody had ever picked up. Nobody had ever listened. Until last night. I did eventually find Sarah Harwell. She was in her 40s now, living 2 states away. When I called her and told her about her father's suitcase, about the note in his date book, she cried. She said she'd always wondered if he'd remembered her birthday, if he'd been thinking about her when it happened. The suitcase was shipped to her last week. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. I don't know if it'll give her closure or just reopen old wounds. But the phone hasn't rung at 12:47 a.m. since. Sometimes I work late now, just to see, just to check. Part of me hopes he'll call again. Part of me wants to tell him that his daughter knows, that she remembers him, that he mattered. But the phone stays silent, and that brown leather suitcase with the gold initials TMH is gone from the shelf, leaving only a dust-free rectangle where it used to sit. I hope, wherever Thomas Harwell is, he finally made it home.
The first time I saw Flight 914 on the radar, I thought it was a mistake. I'd been an air traffic controller for 8 years, and I knew the overnight schedule by heart. Between 2 and 5 a.m., traffic was almost non-existent. Maybe one cargo plane, occasionally a medical transport. That was it. So when a blip appeared on my screen at 3:23 a.m. with the identifier Flight 914, I assumed it was a glitch. "Hey, Marcus," I called to my supervisor. "You seeing this? Flight 914 inbound?" Marcus looked up from his coffee, and something flickered across his face. Not confusion, something else. "Yeah, I see it." "It's not on the schedule. Should I try to make contact?" "No." His answer came too quick, too firm. "Just let it land." Let it land? I don't even know what airline. "Emma." He walked over to my station, his voice dropping low. "Just guide it in. Runway 27R. Don't ask questions." I stared at him. In 8 years, Marcus had never told me not to do my job. What's going on? "Guide it in," he repeated. "Then forget about it." The blip was getting closer. I switched to the standard approach frequency, even though everything about this felt wrong. "Flight 914, you're cleared for approach, runway 27R. Winds calm, visibility clear." No response. "Flight 914, do you copy?" Static. Just empty static. But the plane kept coming, its trajectory perfect, like someone was flying it. I watched it descend, line up with the runway, and touch down smooth as silk. Textbook landing.
"Ground crew is already there," Marcus said behind me. "They'll handle it." "Handle what? There's no gate assignment, no passenger manifest, no—" "Emma." His hand was on my shoulder now. Heavy. "Drop it. Trust me." I watched on the ground radar as the plane taxied to a remote stand on the far edge of the airport, away from the terminals. Then, just like Marcus said, I dropped it. logged it as a maintenance ferry flight, and moved on. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same time, 3:23 a.m., same flight number, same runway, same silence when I tried to make contact. "Marcus," I said carefully, "Flight 914 is back." "I know. Same procedure." This is insane. What kind of plane lands at the same time 2 nights in a row with no communication, no passengers, no... "Emma, I need you to stop asking questions. Please." There was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Fear. I guided the plane in again, watching it land perfectly, taxi to the same remote stand. This time, after my shift ended at 6 a.m., I didn't go home. I grabbed a coffee from the break room and headed out to the observation area on the roof of the terminal. The sun was just starting to come up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I could see the whole airfield from up there. And there, in the distance at the remote stand, I could just barely make out the silhouette of a plane. But as the sun rose higher, something strange happened. The plane started to fade, not quickly, gradually, like someone was turning down its opacity. Within 10 minutes, it was completely gone. Just an empty parking stand where a full-sized aircraft had been sitting moments before. I dropped my coffee cup. That night, I came in early. I found Marcus in his office and closed the door behind me. "I need to know what's happening with Flight 914. He looked older suddenly, tired. "No, you don't. I watched it disappear this morning, just vanish into thin air. So either I'm losing my mind or something seriously wrong is going on, and I deserve to know which one." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled out a bottle from his desk drawer, whiskey, which he never drank on shift, and poured 2 fingers into a coffee mug. "Flight 914 crashed in 1989, he said finally. 36 years ago. Engine failure on approach. Clipped a maintenance hangar and went down just past runway 27R. Killed everyone on board. 143 people. My mouth went dry. That's not possible. I've been tracking it. It's real. It lands. I know it lands. It's been landing every night at 3:23 a.m. since the crash. He took a long drink. We're not the only ones who see it. Ground crew sees it too. Radar picks it up. Sometimes passengers in the terminal report seeing a plane land. But by morning, it's always gone. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because most controllers quit once they find out. Can't handle it.
And we need people on the overnight shift. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes. "I'm sorry. I should have warned you, but we were desperate. Does anyone go near it? Ground crew is supposed to stay away, but sometimes, especially new guys who don't know, they'll drive out there." His hands were shaking now. "They hear things, footsteps inside the plane, voices. Someone tried to board it once, back in 2007. Found the stairs on the ground the next morning, but the guy was gone. Never found him. I felt sick. We need to report this. FAA, NTSB, someone. You think we haven't tried? Every report gets buried. Every investigation gets shut down. This airport makes too much money. They can't have stories about ghost planes scaring off passengers." He laughed bitterly. "So we just guide it in, night after night, and pretend everything's normal." At 3:23 a.m. that night, Flight 914 appeared on my radar again. But this time, I did something stupid, something I knew I shouldn't do. I grabbed the radio and switched to the emergency frequency. "Flight 914, this is Tower. If you can hear me, please respond." Static. "Flight 914, I know what happened to you. I know about the crash. Is there something you need?" More static. Then, cutting through the white noise, a voice, faint, distorted, but definitely human. "Help us." My blood turned to ice. "Say again, please. Help us. We can't." The transmission cut out. The blip on my radar wavered, flickering like a candle flame about to die. For a moment, I thought it would disappear, but then it stabilized and continued its approach. Marcus had gone pale. "What did you do?" "They're asking for help." "Don't, Emma, Don't get involved. That's the one rule. But I was already talking again. Flight 914, what do you need? How can I help? This time, multiple voices came through, overlapping, desperate. Don't know where we are. So cold. Been trying to land. Can't find the terminal. Where is everyone? Tears were streaming down my face. You did land. You're on the ground. You're safe. Can't see anything. Everything's dark. Please help us. Walk toward the lights, I said, my voice breaking. The terminal. You can see it from where you are. Just walk toward the lights. Silence. Long, empty silence. Then, faintly, thank you. The blip on my radar flickered one last time and vanished. Not landed, not taxiing, just gone, like it had never been there at all. Marcus was staring at me, his face white. What did you just do? I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just sat there, shaking, listening to the empty static. That was 6 months ago. Flight 914 hasn't appeared on radar since that night. The 3:23 a.m. slot stays empty. Ground crew doesn't see anything on the remote stand. It's like it finally found what it was looking for.
But sometimes, late at night when the terminal is almost empty, passengers report seeing people who don't quite look right, wearing clothes from the 80s, looking lost and confused, asking where the exits are, where their families are. Security can never find them on the cameras. They're just there one moment, walking through the terminal, and gone the next. I don't work overnight shifts anymore. Couldn't handle it after that night. But I heard from Marcus last week. He said something strange is starting to happen around gate C14, the gate Flight 9114 was supposed to arrive at before it crashed. People are hearing boarding announcements for a flight that doesn't exist. Passengers sitting in the waiting area who aren't on any manifest. And every night, at 3:23 a.m., the gate door opens on its own. Marcus asked if I'd consider coming back. Said they need someone who knows how to talk to them, someone who isn't afraid. I told him I'd think about it. But the truth is, I'm terrified. Because I keep wondering, when I told them to walk toward the lights, toward the terminal, did I help them? Or did I just invite them in? And if they're here now, in the terminal, still lost and confused, and looking for a way home, what happens when they realize there is no way home? That they've been dead for 36 years, and the families they're looking for are long gone? I don't have answers. All I know is that Flight 9114 isn't on the radar anymore.
But I'm starting to think it landed somewhere much worse than a remote parking stand. It landed here, with us, and I don't think it's leaving. She was sitting in seat B7 when I first noticed her. I just started my shift as a gate agent at 6 p.m., taking over from Carol, who looked exhausted. It was a slow Tuesday evening, just one flight out of gate 23 at 8:45, heading to Atlanta. The waiting area was mostly empty, just a handful of business travelers tapping on laptops and one family with a fuzzy toddler. And her. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting perfectly still in a blue plastic chair. She wore a yellow dress with white flowers on it, white sneakers, and had her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, and she was staring straight ahead at nothing. Something about her made me pause. Maybe it was how still she was. Kids that age don't sit still. They squirm, they play on phones, they bug their parents. But this girl was motionless, like a photograph. I walked over with my best customer service smile. "Hi there, sweetie. Are you flying with us today?" She didn't respond. Didn't even look at me. "Honey, where are your parents?" Nothing. Her eyes stayed fixed on some invisible point in front of her. I glanced around the gate area, looking for an adult who might be watching her, maybe someone who'd stepped away to use the bathroom.
But everyone there was accounted for. The business travelers, the family with the toddler. No one was paying attention to this girl. I crouched down to her eye level. "Can you tell me your name?" Still nothing. But now that I was closer, I noticed something odd. She wasn't blinking at all, and her skin looked strange in the fluorescent light, too pale, almost translucent. "Okay, just wait here, okay? I'm going to find your mom and dad." I stood up, my heart beating faster than it should.
I called over to my coworker, Derek, who was checking in passengers at the podium. "Hey, you see a parent for this little girl?" Derek glanced over. "What little girl?" "Seat B7, yellow dress." He looked right at the seat where she was sitting. "I don't see anyone." "Derek, she's right." I turned back. The girl was still there, clear as day. "You're telling me you don't see a child sitting in that chair?" His face went pale. "Emma, there's nobody in that chair." "Stop messing with me." "I'm not." He walked over, and I watched as he looked directly at the empty seat. Empty to him, apparently, while I could see her sitting there, hands folded, staring ahead. "There's no one here." My hands started shaking. "This isn't funny." "I'm not joking. I genuinely don't see anyone." I looked at the girl again. She still hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. And now I noticed something else. The chair beneath her wasn't depressing at all, like she weighed nothing.
"I need to call security," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "For what? An empty chair? Just watch the gate, please." I went back to the podium and picked up the phone with trembling hands. I called airport security and tried to explain the situation without sounding insane. A child at gate 23, no adult supervision. Something wrong. Please send someone. 10 minutes later, Officer Martinez arrived. He was an older guy, probably close to retirement, with kind eyes and a patient demeanor. "You called about an unaccompanied minor?" "Yes, seat B7. She won't talk to me, and I can't find her parents." Martinez walked over to the seat. The girl was still there. I could see her so clearly. The yellow dress, the white sneakers, the way her hair caught the light. "Miss," Martinez said slowly, "I don't see a child." "You're all crazy. She's right there." But even as I said it, I watched Martinez's eyes scan right past her, like she wasn't there, like she was invisible to everyone but me. Martinez pulled me aside, his voice gentle. "Emma, is it? How long have you been on shift?" "I just started. Look, I know what this sounds like, but I can see her. She's real." "Has this happened before? Seeing things that others can't?" "No, I'm not hallucinating. She's sitting right there in seat B7, yellow dress, dark hair. She won't speak or move or..." I stopped, because when I looked back at the seat, the girl was staring directly at me.
Her eyes were completely black. No whites, no iris, just two dark voids where I should be. I stumbled backward, my breath catching in my throat. Oh my God. "Emma?" Martinez caught my arm. "What's wrong?" The girl stood up, slowly, mechanically, like she was being pulled by invisible strings. The other passengers didn't react, didn't see her. She started walking toward me, and with each step, the temperature seemed to drop. I could see my breath now, little clouds forming in front of my face. "Stay away from me," I whispered. She kept coming, and now I could hear something, a soft sound, like rustling leaves or distant whispers. It was coming from her. "Emma, there's no one there." Martinez was looking at me with genuine concern now. "I think you need to take a break. You might be having a..." "My name is Sophie." The girl's voice cut through the air, clear and sharp, childlike but wrong somehow, like it was being played through a broken speaker. Everyone in the gate area stopped. The business travelers looked up from their laptops. The family with a toddler went silent. Derek froze at the podium. "Did you..." I looked at Martinez. "Did you hear that?" His face had gone completely white. "Yeah, I heard that." The girl, Sophie, tilted her head at an unnatural angle. "I'm waiting for my mommy and daddy. They said they'd be right back." "Sophie," I said, my voice shaking, "where are your parents? What flight were you on?" "Gate 23. They said wait at gate 23.
But they never came back. Martinez had his radio out now, speaking in quick, urgent tones. "Control, I need supervisor to gate 23 immediately, and pull up any missing child reports associated with this gate, old reports, everything you have." Sophie took another step closer. She was only a few feet away now, and I could see that she wasn't quite solid. I could see through her, just barely, the outline of the chairs behind her, the carpet pattern showing through her shoes. "How long have you been waiting, Sophie?" I asked softly. "I don't know. A long time. Everyone keeps changing. The people come and go, but Mommy and Daddy never come back." Tears were streaming down my face now. "Sophie, sweetie, When did your parents leave you here? After we got off the plane. Daddy said he needed to get something. Mommy went with him. They told me to wait. Her voice cracked. I've been waiting so long. Why won't they come back? Martinez's radio crackled. A woman's voice, sharp and urgent. Officer Martinez, are you at gate 23? Affirmative. We found something. Missing child case from 1994. Sophie Chen, age 7. Last seen at gate 23 with her parents. Family was connecting through on their way to San Francisco. Parents left child at the gate to retrieve a forgotten bag from their first flight. When they returned 15 minutes later, the child was gone. Never found. 1994. 30 years ago. I looked at Sophie, this little girl in her yellow dress, still waiting for parents who would never come back. Not because they abandoned her, but because something had happened. Something that meant she never made it to San Francisco, never grew up, never went home. Sophie, I whispered, your parents, they looked for you. They never stopped looking. Then where are they? Her voice was desperate now, the child's voice breaking with 30 years of loneliness. Why won't they come get me? Because I couldn't finish. How do you tell a 7-year-old child that she's dead, that she's been dead for 3 decades? But she seemed to understand. Her face crumpled, and she let out a sound that made everyone in the gate area flinch, a wail of pure grief that didn't sound like it came from anything human. I want my mommy, she sobbed. Please, I just want my mommy. The lights started flickering. The screens at the gate went haywire, displaying random letters and numbers. The temperature dropped so fast that frost started forming on the windows. Sophie, listen to me. I knelt down, even though every instinct told me to run. Your parents loved you. They never stopped loving you. But you can't stay here anymore. You've been waiting so long. It's time to go. But they told me to wait here. I know, but they can't come back to this place. They're somewhere else now. And I think they're waiting for you there.
She looked up at me with those terrible black eyes. Really? Really? But you have to stop waiting here. You have to let go. For a long moment, nothing happened. The gate area was frozen, passengers staring in horror, Derek gripping the podium, Martinez with his hand on his gun, like that would do any good. Then, Sophie smiled. A real smile, a child's smile. Okay, she said softly. I'll go find them. And just like that, she was gone. The temperature returned to normal. The lights stopped flickering. The screens reset to the normal flight information. It was like she'd never been there at all. I collapsed into the nearest chair, my whole body shaking. Martinez sat down next to me, his hand over his heart. In 23 years on this job, he said hoarsely, I have never seen anything like that. Is she really gone? I think so. Later that night, after my shift, I looked up Sophie Chen, found the old news articles about her disappearance. The photos showed a smiling 7-year-old in a yellow dress with white flowers. Her parents, David and Lynn Chen, had spent years searching for her. David died in 2008. Lynn passed just last year. I like to think Sophie found them, that she's not waiting at gate 23 anymore, that she finally went home. But sometimes, when I work the evening shift, I still glance over at seat B7, just checking, just making sure it's empty. Because the thing about gate 23 is this, it's a connecting gate.
A place where people stop between destinations. A place where they wait. And I can't help but wonder how many others are waiting there. How many people who never made their connections, never reached their destinations, never found their way home. I don't see them, not anymore. But sometimes I feel them. A cold spot near the windows. A seat that stays empty even when the flight is oversold. A child's laughter echoing from somewhere I can't quite place. Gate 23 isn't just a gate anymore. It's a waiting room for the lost. And I'm afraid Sophie won't be the last one I see. The suitcase was black, with a red ribbon tied around the handle.
I noticed it on my first sweep through Terminal B at midnight. It was sitting alone near Gate B16, upright and perfectly centered between two rows of seats, like someone had placed it there deliberately. Standard protocol. I tagged it as unattended luggage, took a photo, and logged it in the system with the time and location. Got an abandoned bag at B16. I radioed to Central Security. Black hardshell, red ribbon, running it through the scanner. Copy that. Bomb squad's on another call. Can you do a visual check first? I approached carefully, did my walk around. No wires, no unusual sounds, no chemical smells. Just a regular suitcase. There was a luggage tag attached, but the information was smudged and illegible. I grabbed it by the handle to take it to the security office. It was heavy. Really heavy.
Had to weigh at least 60 pounds. I logged it into evidence storage, noted the weight on the scale, 62 pounds exactly, and went back to my rounds. 2 hours later, at 2 a.m., I got a call from Jake, who was covering Terminal D. "Hey Chris, you still got that black suitcase with the red ribbon?" I frowned. "Yeah, it's in evidence storage. Why?" "Because there's one sitting at gate D9 that looks exactly like it." "That's impossible. I just logged it 20 minutes ago." "I'm looking at it right now, man. Black hardshell, red ribbon around the handle, same tag, same everything." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "I'm coming over." When I got to Terminal D, Jake was standing 10 feet away from the suitcase like it might explode. And he was right. It looked identical. Same scuffed corners, same red ribbon tied in the same double knot. "Did you check the cameras?" I asked. "Yeah, it just appears. One frame the gate area is empty, the next frame it's sitting there. No one carries it in, no one touches it." I pulled out my radio. "This is Officer Chin. I need someone to check evidence storage. Black suitcase with red ribbon. Make sure it's still there." A few minutes later, the response came back. "Confirmed. Black suitcase still in storage, cage 7. Jake and I looked at each other. "Two identical suitcases," he said slowly. "Apparently." I grabbed this one. It was lighter, maybe 40 pounds, and we took it back to evidence storage.
Put it in a separate cage from the first one, both sitting there, side by side, identical. At 4 a.m., Lisa called from Terminal A. "Please tell me this is some kind of prank. What's wrong?" "There's a black suitcase with a red ribbon at gate A3, and before you ask, I already checked the cameras. It just appeared." My hands had started shaking. "We're on our way." This one weighed 78 pounds, heavier than both of the others. We brought it back to storage, and now there were 3 of them, lined up in a row. Same suitcase, different weights. "This is insane," Lisa whispered. "What the hell is going on?" I pulled up the security footage from all 3 locations and synchronized the timestamps. In each case, the suitcase appeared at exactly the top of the hour. Midnight at B16, 2 a.m. at D9, 4 a.m. at A3. "It's moving on a schedule," I said. "Suitcases don't move themselves," Jake replied, but his voice was uncertain. At 5:45 a.m., I made a decision. We're going to be waiting at Terminal C when 6 o'clock hits, with cameras ready. Whatever's happening, we're going to see it. The 3 of us positioned ourselves around gate C11, phones out, watching. At 5:59, the gate area was completely empty. We could see every angle, every seat, every corner. At exactly 6 a.m., the suitcase appeared. Not slowly, not gradually. One frame it wasn't there, and the next frame it was sitting upright between 2 rows of seats, red ribbon and all.
I watched it happen in real time and still couldn't explain it. It didn't fade in, didn't get carried. It just suddenly existed. "Did you see that?" Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. "Yeah," I breathed. "I saw it." This one was the lightest yet, maybe 25 pounds. We brought it back to evidence storage, where 4 identical suitcases now sat in a row. "We need to open them," Jake said. "Are you crazy? We don't know what's inside." "Exactly. That's why we need to look." I called the supervisor, explained the situation, edited version, left out the Supernatural Appearing Act, and got authorization to open them under controlled conditions. Bomb squad arrived at 7 a.m. and cleared all 4 cases. No explosives, no hazardous materials, just luggage. We opened the first one, the 62-pounder from Terminal B. It was completely empty. No clothes, no items, nothing. Just an empty suitcase. "That's impossible," I said. "This thing weighed 62 pounds." We put it back on the scale. 20 pounds.
the weight of the empty suitcase itself. Jake opened the second one, also empty. The scale showed 18 pounds now, when it had been 40 before. All 4 suitcases were empty, and all 4 had lost their weight. "The tag," Lisa said suddenly. "Check the tag. Maybe we can trace the owner." I grabbed the first suitcase and examined the luggage tag more carefully under the light. The writing was faded, but I could just make out a name. James Vickery.
I pulled out my tablet and searched the passenger database. One result came up. James Vickery, passenger on Flight 828, November 3rd, 2019. My blood ran cold. No way. What? Jake leaned over my shoulder. Who is he? Flight 828 was the plane that went down over the Atlantic 5 years ago. 184 people killed. They never recovered most of the bodies. James Vickery was... I scrolled through the report. He was listed as deceased, seat 23C. The room went silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. So this is... Lisa couldn't finish the sentence. His luggage. Yeah. I looked back at the 4 suitcases, lined up in a row, all empty now, and I thought about Flight 828, somewhere at the bottom of the ocean. All those people, all their belongings, scattered across the seafloor or lost forever in the deep. "Why is it appearing here?" Jake asked quietly. I didn't have an answer. None of us did. At 8 a.m., my shift was ending. I was exhausted, mentally and physically drained. As I was leaving, I stopped by evidence storage one more time, just to check on the suitcases. There were only 3 now. "Where's the 4th one?" I called to the officer on duty. "What 4th one? You logged 3 suitcases." "No, there were 4. I personally brought in. But when I checked the logs, he was right. Only 3 entries. Only 3 suitcases. The first one, the 62-pounder from Terminal B, was God. Like it had never existed."
I went home and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I kept thinking about James Vickery, about Flight 828, about 184 people who never made it home. At 11:45 p.m., I came back to the airport early for my next shift. I had to know. I positioned myself at Terminal E, camera ready, watching. At exactly midnight, the suitcase appeared at Gate E7. This time, I walked up to it immediately. My hands were shaking as I reached for the tag. Same name, James Vickery. But this time there was more, a phone number, an address, and written in faded ink at the bottom, "If found, please return to Sarah Vickery, 2847 Maple Street, Richmond, Virginia." Sarah Vickery. I looked her up. James's wife. Still alive, still at the same address. I didn't go through official channels, couldn't explain any of this in a report. Instead, I took a photo of the tag and sent her a message through social media, carefully worded, asking if she'd lost any luggage belonging to her husband. She responded within an hour. "That's James's suitcase. He had it with him on Flight 828. How did you find it?" I didn't know how to answer, so I told her the truth, all of it. The appearing and disappearing, the changing weights, the empty interior. Her response came 30 minutes later. "James always said if anything happened to him, he'd find a way back to me. I thought he meant his spirit or a sign, something like that. I never thought. The suitcase was his grandfather's. He never traveled without it."
It meant everything to him. The red ribbon was something I tied on it before his last trip, so he'd remember me. He used to joke that as long as he had that suitcase, he'd always find his way home. I sat there in the empty terminal, reading her words over and over. "He's trying to come home," she wrote, "isn't he? He's still trying to find his way back." I looked at the suitcase sitting at Gate E7, so ordinary, so normal, just a black hard shell with a red ribbon. But it wasn't ordinary. It was a beacon, a lighthouse in the dark, a man's last desperate attempt to keep a promise to his wife. I picked it up. It was lighter now, maybe 15 pounds, and carried it to my car. I didn't log it, didn't report it. I just took it. The next morning, I drove 6 hours to Richmond, to 2847 Maple Street. Sarah Vickery answered the door, a woman in her 60s, with kind eyes and graying hair. "You're the officer who messaged me," she said. "Yes, ma'am." I held out the suitcase. "I think this belongs to you." She stared at it for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she took it, holding it like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for bringing him home." That was 6 months ago. The suitcase hasn't appeared at the airport since that night. No more mysterious luggage materializing in terminals. No more impossible movements. No more changing weights. James Vickery found his way home.
But sometimes, late at night during my rounds, I see other pieces of luggage sitting alone in empty gates. A duffel bag at Terminal C, a backpack at Terminal A, a carry-on at Terminal D. And I wonder how many of them are still searching. How many lost passengers are sending their belongings ahead, hoping someone will notice, hoping someone will care enough to bring them home. I check the tags now, every single one. And when I find a name that matches a passenger from a crash, from a disappearance, from any tragedy that left someone's luggage behind, I do what I did for James Vickery. I bring them home. It's the least I can do. Because the thing about airports is this: they're places of transition, places between here and there, between departure and arrival. And sometimes the people who never completed that journey, they're still trying, still searching for the way home, and their luggage always knows the way. The elevator shouldn't have a button for sublevel 3. I'd been working cargo handling at the airport for 4 months, and I knew every freight elevator in the building. They all went the same places: ground level, sublevel 1 for short-term storage, sublevel 2 for long-term. That was it. 3 buttons, 3 floors. So when I wheeled my cart of packages into elevator F at 11 p.m. and saw 4 buttons, I stopped cold. Ground, SL1, SL2, and below those, barely visible, worn almost smooth like someone had tried to scratch it off, SL3.
"Hey, Marcus," I called to my supervisor, who was walking past. "When did they add a 4th level?" He stuck his head in, glanced at the panel. "There's only 3 buttons, Danny." "No, look, right there, sub-level 3. Marcus squinted at the panel, then shook his head. "I don't see a 4th button. You feeling okay?" I stared at him. The button was right there. Tarnished brass, slightly recessed, but definitely there. "You seriously don't see it?" "Get some rest, kid. Long shifts mess with your head." He walked away, leaving me alone in the elevator. I looked back at the button. Still there. I reached out and touched it. Solid, real, cool metal under my fingertip. The logical thing would have been to just hit SL2, deliver my packages, and forget about it. But I'd never been great at doing the logical thing. I pressed SL3. The elevator lurched, and for a second I thought it was going to drop into freefall. But then it steadied and started descending, slower than normal. The numbers above the door counted down. Ground, SL1, SL2. Then the display went dark. The elevator kept moving, groaning and creaking like it was traveling much farther than it should. My ears popped from the pressure change. The temperature dropped. After what felt like forever, the elevator shuddered to a stop. The doors didn't open. I jabbed the door open button. Nothing. Tried the ground floor button. The elevator didn't move.
The lights flickered, dimmed, and for one terrible moment I thought they'd go out completely. But they steadied, leaving everything in a sickly yellow glow. Then, slowly, the doors began to open. The smell hit me first. Burned. Not like fire exactly, but like melted plastic and scorched metal, and something else, something organic and wrong. I covered my nose and mouth with my sleeve and peered out. A concrete tunnel stretched ahead of me,
lit by emergency lights spaced every 20 feet. The walls were blackened with soot, and the ceiling was low, maybe 7 feet tall. The floor was covered in a thin layer of what looked like ash. "Hello." My voice echoed down the tunnel and died. Every instinct told me to hit the ground floor button and get out of there, but the elevator still wasn't responding. The only way out was forward. I stepped into the tunnel, and immediately my shoes crunched on something. I looked down. Broken glass, lots of it. And beneath the ash, I could see scorch marks on the concrete, like something had burned so hot it had left permanent stains. The tunnel curved to the right. I followed it, passing what looked like old utility rooms with rusted metal doors hanging off their hinges. Through one doorway, I could see the charred remains of what might have been office furniture, a desk, a filing cabinet, all melted and twisted. My phone had no signal. The emergency lights gave everything a harsh, clinical quality that somehow made it worse.
And the smell, that burned smell, kept getting stronger. The tunnel opened into a larger space, a platform, like a subway station, but cruder. Concrete pillars supported the ceiling, and on the far wall I could see the remnants of what looked like a control room, windows blown out, interior completely gutted by fire. And on the platform, there were things, shapes, covered in dust and ash. It took my brain a moment to process what I was seeing, and when I did, my stomach lurched. Luggage. Dozens of pieces of luggage. Suitcases, duffel bags, backpacks, all arranged in neat rows, like someone had carefully organized them, all covered in that same layer of ash. I walked closer, my heart hammering. Some of the luggage tags were still attached. I knelt down next to a blue suitcase and wiped the ash away from the tag. Patricia Morrison, Flight 447, March 1989. My mouth went dry. I moved to the next one. David Chen, Flight 447, March 1989. Flight 447. I knew that number. Everyone who worked at the airport long enough heard the stories. The plane that caught fire during boarding in 1989, 23 people dead. The gate had been sealed off up on the main level, but nobody had ever mentioned anything down here. I stood up, looking at the rows of luggage, easily 100 pieces, maybe more, and beyond them, at the far end of the platform, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. A tunnel, blocked off with yellow caution tape and a chain-link fence.
And beyond the fence, in the darkness, I could just barely make out the nose of an aircraft. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not possible." But I was moving toward it anyway, like something was pulling me. I ducked under the caution tape and grabbed the fence. It was padlocked, but old and rusted. I shook it, and the whole thing rattled loose from its moorings. I squeezed through. The tunnel beyond was wider, taller, and sitting in the darkness, covered in soot and ash, was the front section of a passenger plane. The nose was crumpled, windows blown out, the whole thing scorched black, but I could still see the number on the fuselage, 447. Oh my God! This wasn't just wreckage they'd stored down here. This was the actual plane, or part of it. They'd brought it down here and sealed it away, hidden it beneath the airport where nobody would ever find it. But why? I climbed up on the debris and peered through one of the broken windows. The interior was devastated, seats melted, overhead compartments collapsed, everything charred beyond recognition. But something caught my eye. Sitting in one of the aisle seats, still strapped in, was a burned briefcase. I don't know why I reached for it. Maybe morbid curiosity. Maybe the same compulsion that had made me press that button in the first place. I stretched through the window and grabbed it, pulling it out into the tunnel. The briefcase fell apart in my hands, the leather crumbling.
Papers spilled out, most of them too damaged to read, but one document was still partially intact, an official-looking report with a government seal at the top. I held it up to the emergency light and read what I could. Electrical fire originated in cargo hold.
spread to fuel lines before ground crew could respond. Evacuation incomplete. 23 fatalities confirmed. Recommendation: incident site to be sealed and classified Level 4. Public inquiry to site mechanical failure only. Actual cause. The rest was burned away. My hands were shaking. They'd lied. The official story was mechanical failure, a tragic accident. But this report suggested something else, something they'd covered up. A sound echoed through the tunnel behind me. Metal scraping on concrete. I spun around. Back at the platform, the elevator doors were closing. "Wait!" I ran, dropping the briefcase, sprinting back through the tunnel. "Wait, hold the door!" But by the time I reached the platform, the doors were shut. I hammered on them, jabbed the call button. Nothing. The elevator was moving up without me. I was trapped down here, in a sealed tunnel, with a hidden crash site, and 100 pieces of abandoned luggage, and the truth about what really happened to Flight 447. My breathing was coming fast now, panic clawing at my chest. I pulled out my phone. Still no signal. The emergency lights seemed dimmer now, or maybe that was just my imagination. And then I heard it.
A soft sound, barely audible, like footsteps, coming from deeper in the tunnel, from the direction of the plane. "Hello?" My voice cracked. "Is someone there?" The footsteps stopped. I stood frozen, every muscle tense, staring into the darkness beyond the emergency lights. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. Then, all at once, every emergency light in the tunnel went out. Complete darkness. The kind of dark that presses against your eyes, that makes you question if you even still exist. I fumbled with my phone, turning on the flashlight with trembling hands. The beam cut through the black, illuminating the tunnel in harsh white light. And there, standing between me and the plane, were people. Shadows, really. Human-shaped silhouettes that didn't quite look right. Too tall, too thin, their movements wrong, jerky and disjointed, like stop-motion animation. There had to be 20 of them, just standing there, watching me. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm sorry about what happened. I'm sorry they hid you down here." The shadows didn't move, but I could feel something from them. Not anger exactly, more like sadness, a profound, crushing sadness that filled the tunnel and pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. My phone flashlight flickered. "No, no, no," I muttered, shaking it. The light steadied, but when I looked up, the shadows were closer, much closer, close enough that I should be able to see their faces, but there was nothing there.
Just darkness where faces should be. Behind me, the elevator dinged. I spun around. The doors were sliding open, the interior lit with that familiar fluorescent glow. I didn't hesitate. I ran, diving into the elevator and slamming my hand on the ground floor button. The doors began to close. Just before they shut completely, I looked back at the tunnel. The shadows were right there, pressed up against the elevator, their darkness seeping through the closing gap. I could hear them now, a soft whisper, dozens of voices overlapping. Tell them what happened. Tell them where we are." Then the doors sealed shut, and the elevator lurched upward. I collapsed against the wall, gasping, my whole body shaking. The elevator climbed, SL2, SL1, ground, and when the doors opened, I stumbled out into the familiar cargo bay, into the bright lights and normal sounds of forklifts and workers going about their business. Marcus saw me and frowned. "Danny? What the hell? You look like you've seen a ghost." The tunnel. Sub-level 3. There's a plane down there. Wreckage from Flight 447. And luggage and... Whoa, slow down. What are you talking about? The elevator. I went to sub-level 3 and found... There is no sub-level 3, Danny. I told you there's only 2 sub-levels. But I was just there. I have proof. I reached for my phone to show him the photos, but when I pulled it up, the gallery was empty. No photos, like I'd never taken any.
"I think you need to go home," Marcus said gently. "Get some sleep. You've been working too many double shifts." I wanted to argue, wanted to drag him to the elevator and show him the button,
But when we walked over there together, the panel only showed 3 buttons: ground, SL1, SL2. The 4th button was gone. That was 3 weeks ago. I've gone back to that elevator every shift since, looking for the SL3 button. It's never there. I've searched airport records, tried to find information about what's really beneath the building. Everything comes up clean, just 2 sublevels, just standard storage. But I know what I saw. I know what's down there. And every night when I work, I hear them. Faint whispers echoing up through the ventilation shafts. Voices asking to be remembered, asking for someone to tell their story. So I'm telling it now. I don't care if anyone believes me. Flight 447 didn't just crash. Something happened, something bad enough that they hid the evidence 3 levels underground and erased it from history. 23 people died, and instead of honoring them, someone sealed them away in the dark and pretended they never existed. But they did exist. They do exist. And they're still down there, waiting in that tunnel, hoping that someday, someone will tell the truth. I don't know if I'll add a see that 4th button again. But if I do, I'm not sure I'll have the courage to press it. Because some truths are buried for a reason.
And some doors once opened can never be closed.